Greetings family, Sista Shanice in the house for another Sista Shanice show. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate your company. I don't take it for granted that you're here because there are millions of videos out there that you could be watching. So thank you so much. Today I've got one of my radio programs that I'm going to bring to you. Yes, just in case you didn't know, I do a radio show every Wednesday and alternate Saturdays from 10 a.m. through to 1 p.m. GMT time. So if you can, do tune in live, and if you are listening live, you can also phone in and be part of the discussion, part of the debate, and we welcome your views and opinions because your views are important. I will put the links below this show that you can use to get in touch with me at www.galaxyafui.com, and I'll also put our Skype address and our telephone number so that you can join in the debate and the discussions on those shows. And my radio shows actually look at issues from an African-centered perspective. So be it political, educational, cultural, psychological, whatever the issues are, we're looking at it from an African-centered perspective. Now today we're actually looking at education, and we're looking at the power of education, how education can actually empower us as a people to be the greatest that we can be, how with the right education we can again relive the days of those golden ages, how we can have the knowledge through education of the minerals under our feet, the wealth under our feet in the continent, and how to process all of those various minerals and turn them into products that we can then sell to the rest of the world. How with the right education that the continent could be elevated to where we all would ideally want to see it. And also it looks at how with the wrong education, we can be dependent on those who don't look like us, don't like us, and because the education has convinced us that we are no good and others are just so much better than we are. You see, so an education can either empower us or it can cripple us to be the dependent beggars of the world. So we're going to look at education and the power of education. We're going to discuss that in the show today. And very importantly, I'm drawing references from the book written by Carter G. Woodson way back in the 1930s. And we're going to see how a lot of what he wrote about then is still very relevant today. So why have we not addressed these issues? Some of you may feel that we have done. I welcome your comments and opinions in the comments section below. Please let me know what you think of the video, and share your comments and thoughts with me. I'll also be leaving the links below so that you can join in live in the discussions on my shows. And if you like the video, please do share it. I would so appreciate love if you was to do so. And if you would like to subscribe, please hit that subscribe button as well. So thank you so much in advance for listening. Don't take it for granted that you're here on this channel. Love you all. Share your thoughts below. One love, family.
It's important that we rise each other up and that we celebrate each other, because the society that we live in is not going to celebrate us. The society that we live in is not going to elevate us. The society that we live in is not going to instill the confidence in us in order for us to do what needs to be done to further our race. You would have heard, from the teachings of our brother Carter G. Woodson, that in fact the system will do all that it can to keep us in what they consider to be our place, which is at the bottom of the ladder, to keep us in our, mindless state, economically, psychologically, culturally. The entire system is designed to keep us as a people down. The education that we get is designed to disable us from doing what needs to be done in order for us to construct and construct our greatness and our great nations again. So, if we have been disabled at the core, if the core of what is supposed to be enabling us is actually disabling us, we have now got to begin to think about how we overcome that huge obstacle of disability and disadvantage and discrimination and racism and apartheid and everything that is, designed to hold us down as a people. We're going to have to be thinking together and collectively about what we do and how we do it in order to overcome such obstacles. I want to rise up the entire Galaxy management team for bringing this wonderful radio station into existence, to enable us as a people to be able to be having these types of conversations. It's so important because, yes, we are in the pits at the moment. We're in a lot of doo-doo at the moment, and we've got to dig ourselves out of it. So we have a choice, if all of us are at the bottom rung of the ladder, if all of us are in the poo-poo, what we have to do? We have to either help each other up, help out one another for come up out of the situation or the situation that we find ourselves in, and each one look back just for pull up one another, or as seemed to be the case, all we can stay in at the poo-poo and continue to tear down. And there comes a point where we have to make up our mind which is going to be. Is it the pull up, and we gotta go continue with the crab in a barrel, tear down. We have too much in the community, too much of our people love to tear down. We have to stop it. We have to stop do them thing there, and pull up, because that's the only way we are gonna get out of the poo-poo and the situation that we are in as a people globally, We can't look to anybody else for pull us up out of the situation, because they will just pull up one or two and take everything, and help themselves to everything what is rightfully ours to pull up the one or two. So we can't wait for the others and others who don't look like us to do that works. We have to do it for ourselves, okay? Every single one of us, each and every one of us have skills, have talent, have ability, And it's for us now to realize that each and every one of us is skilled and talented, in our own respective ways. And each and every one of us forms an important part of the jigsaw puzzle of life. And unless we come together and start putting these pieces of the jigsaw together ourselves, until we, as a people become 100% whole again, we will be forever fragmented as a people. And for as long as we are fragmented, for as long as we are divided, we will be exploited, we will be taken advantage of, we will be undermined, we will be ridiculed, we will be downtrodden on, we will be looked down upon, and we will remain in the situation that we find ourselves in. So for all of those who are fed up to the back teeth of us being in poo-poo and in the situation where the rest of, humanity looks down on us as a people and want to rise ourselves up out of that situation, then make sure you put this date in your diary. I don't want to rise up our brother G for his persistence. Yes, Galaxy Radio has, booked a date and time and venue when we as a people, we as leaders, and remember each and every one of us is a leader in our own right, when all of the community organizations will come together to begin to try and work out between us, once again to try and lift ourselves up out of the poo-poo that we're in. So if you are of that mindset where where, despite your education that has told you that you are no good, good for nothing, and unless, you're working for Mr. Whitey, you ain't never going to be successful and you ain't never going to achieve, if you have nevertheless, despite that miseducation, find yourself in a position where you want to give back your skills to the community, where you want to try and help to advance your people, where you want to try and lift yourself up, out of your quagmire, and in so doing be lifting up all of your people out of the quagmire that you find where we find ourselves, and you want to help to lift us up out of that situation. We are calling on the community to come together to begin to discuss or to build on discussions that you're already having about how we as a people lift ourselves up out of the situation that we find ourselves in, how we as a people should be organized and can organize and come together to do for self, because only we are the solutions to the problems that we find we have today. We are the solution to our problems. You are the solution to our problems. I am the solution towards our problems. We all have a role to play in elevating our race and becoming, the great race that we once were. Let's stop looking to the east, and let's stop looking to the west, and let's stop looking to the north to come and take us out of the poverty-stricken, downtrodden situation that we as a people are in. And let's start pointing the finger towards us as individuals, to be the problem solvers, to be the movers and shakers, to be the leaders, to be the trusted ones within our community who can help to elevate us, each and every one of us. We all have a role to play, We are all gifted and black. We are all, wonderfully, beautifully created individuals who have something to contribute towards the upliftment of our people. Too many of us, because of the miseducation that we have had, and if you were listening earlier, you would have heard our brother Carter G. Woodson break it down in such a wonderful, articulate style, of his. You would have heard him break down, the problems that we as a people are facing. And even though that book was written way back in around, I think it's around 1939, the problems that we are faced with are as relevant today as it was back then. Very little has changed. Very little has changed from the situation that, our brother Carter G. Woodson so deeply and analytically critiqued and compiled in his book, The Miseducation of the Negro. So little has changed from when he wrote that book, which was way back in actually 1933. We are still being miseducated today. We are still being miseducated into seeing ourselves, our people, as being less than able, less than capable, and less than having the ability, to inform, to educate, to train, to start up businesses, and to do well in our community and for each other. So, it's really up to us to start dispelling, that awful indoctrination that we have been having, and the main reason why we are being miseducated, the main reason why we are being taught outdated modes of operandes, why we are being taught another person's history, that elevates them and, convinces us to believe that we are inferior. The reason why, we are being made to believe that we as a people have never achieved anything and never will achieve anything, when it is just so far from the truth. The reason why is because they know that if you can control a man's thinking, you do not need to worry about his actions. You do not have to tell him to go stand here or go stand yonder. Why? Because he will find his so-called proper place, because you have instilled it into him that he finds his proper place. You have instilled it into him that his place is at the bottom rung of the ladder. And so he will not even bother trying to find a window or a door, to escape from that bottom rung of a pit hole where he finds himself. He will quite happily go without, and he will quite happily look to his kit and kin as being the reasons for his failures and the reasons for his downfall, without realizing that it's the miseducation that has indoctrinated his mind into believing that he has to stand hitherto or hither there and not excel beyond what is expected of him, but to happily go without, and happily not even bother looking for a back door or a window to cut himself free from the situation that he finds himself in. His education makes it necessary for him not to try and excel, because his education or his miseducation has informed him that, he is not in a position to elevate himself. So as, it says here in the book that I have, because I had to pick up that book today when I heard the audio of this book being recorded, and I will be referring to it. And it says the same educational process which inspires and stimulates the oppressor with the thought that he is everything and has accomplished everything worthwhile, that same education depresses and crushes at the same time the spark of genius in the Negro. But I will continue to use the African going forward, by making the African feel that his race does not amount to much and never will measure up to the standards of other people. The African thus educated is a hopeless liability to the race. The African thus educated is a hopeless liability to the race. How many Africans do you know out there with PhDs, with masters, with degrees, etc., who are unemployed and who are not, making a contribution to their own race, not even trying to make a contribution towards their own race? Why? Because their education or miseducation has led them to believe that their own race is a hopeless liability. Let me backtrack on that again. It says the same education process which inspires and stimulates the oppressor with the thought that he is everything and has accomplished everything worthwhile. At the same time that it does that to the young European sitting in the classroom next to our young African child, whether that African child is being educated here in the UK or in America or in Africa itself, that education system, that global education system, of European indoctrination, whilst it encourages the young European to believe that they are everything, always has been everything, it at the same time depresses and crushes the spark of genius in the African, making him feel that his race does not amount to much, never will measure up to the standards of other peoples. That is what the education that we as a people are being given today is having the impact of doing. The African thus educated is a hopeless liability of the race. The difficulty is that the educated African is compelled to live and move among his own people whom he has been taught to despise. That's why we have so many, disgruntled, highly educated, complaining Africans. Very articulate, will spend all day on WhatsApp articulating all of the problems and the troubles of the world because they've been highly educated academically. But they have been miserably miseducated when it comes to having the skills to know how to use their education to advance themselves and their people. And they will never, it says here in his book, put those skills to use in their own community because they have been educated to despise their own community. What a sin. What a tragedy that we are sending our beautiful sons and daughters into an education system to be miseducated, to despise their own people and to despise their own race, to be taught to despise themselves. Hence why we need this de-brainwashing station, because the so-called modern educational institutions that our beautiful children and young adults are going through is the same today as it was yesterday. And we will continue to send our beautiful children to those awful miseducational institutions tomorrow as well. Why? Because as a people we don't learn from our history. You know? We heard yesterday, if we were listening to our beautiful sister Ebony's show, she played a clip by some woman who I'd never heard of and not interested really to research or find out anything about, condemning our historians for, resurrecting and bringing to light our history. This woman who is a Trump supporter telling us, a people, to get over our history, forget our history and our suffering, and, to move forward. Of course, we want to move forward as a people, but if we don't, recognize from our history and learn from our history the mistakes of the past, are we not then likely to be making the same mistakes again in the future? Remember, 5 minutes ago was history, and I was, complaining about the miseducation system. We've been complaining about the miseducation system for decades. I was doing it 5 minutes ago, 10 minutes ago, 15 minutes ago. We've been doing it for decades. And we're continuing to do it because we don't learn from the past. We are not learning that what we need to do, is to set up our own educational institutions, abandon the curriculums that have been developed by the Europeans, because those curriculums glorify the Europeans. It covers up, their awful histories, and just exposes us as a people as being, exposing us when we have been at our lowest of low, throughout history, without any explanation as to how it was that we found ourselves in those situations. Their educational system makes no references, or hardly any reference whatsoever, to our glorious past. It makes hardly any reference whatsoever, to our greatness as a people, the great empires that we had, established. It makes no reference to them. Makes no reference to the Mali Empire, the Songhai Empire, to the great kingdoms of Benin and all these wonderful, wonderful African, cities and kingdoms and empires that we had prior to the destruction of the Europeans, prior to the invasion and the destruction of those kingdoms by the Europeans. And we wonder why Africa is in its undeveloped state today. So when we are going through those education system and they are pointing out to us why, our African continent is undeveloped, and blaming wholly and squarely, the leaders of today for, the underdevelopment of the African industries, African education system, African waterways and everything else in Africa. What they forget is to put it into context. They forget to remind us that they were the ones who destroyed all of our great kingdoms, who destroyed all of our great cities, who destroyed all of our wonderful, wonderful kingdoms, and torched them, and didn't stop with their destruction until it was rubble. They forget to remind us that they were the culprits of that destruction. But what them quick to do is to point to our continent as it stands, or where it stands in a state of rubble. And don't but remind us that them cause the rubbles of a state that some parts of the continent still finds itself in. And despite the great works of many of the African governments, to build up their countries, to build up and to rebuild their cities and their towns and their villages, despite their great efforts and despite, the evidence on the ground of such great efforts, the Europeans, through their mass media, forever choose to ignore those wonderful parts of industrial geniusness and development, and instead choose to focus on the parts of Africa, that is in a rubble of a state. Why? Because it continues to reinforce what they are peddling out through their pathetic education system, that rubbish, that we are indoctrinated with, that they are superior and we are inferior. And for as long as they continue to peddle that and we continue to believe it, it's going to make our job doubly difficult, triply difficult, quadruply difficult, to rise ourselves up out of that situation. So, we as a people, brothers and sisters, absolutely need to, when we send our children, for now into these schools of miseducated places, these institutions of so-called learning that are miseducating us and our children, when we send them in there, we need to remind ourselves of the words of our brother, Dr. Carter Woodson, when he says, when you control a man's thinking, you do not have to worry about his actions. You do not have to tell him not to stand here or go yonder. He will find his so-called proper place and will stay in it. You do not need to send him to the back door. He will go without being told. In fact, if there is no back door, he will cut one for his special benefit. His education makes it necessary. History shows us that it does not matter who is in power. Those who have not learned or do for themselves and have to depend solely on others never obtain any more rights or privileges in the end than they did in the beginning. So we need to stop relying wholly and squarely on our leaders and start looking inward, start looking in the mirror, and asking ourselves, what can I do? What can we do for self? The other nations are out there doing what they feel they need to do to elevate themselves. We need to be doing what we need to be doing to elevate ourselves. And we need to recognize the works of our historians and our, education, our African historians who are trying to educate us into realizing, what we as a people have suffered and the heights from which we have fallen from. We have such a long way to go as a people. But the great news is that with the right mindset, we can undo the damage that has been done during our own lifetime. When we look at history and when we remind our children of our history, let's remind them of our great cities that we as a people built. Let's remind them of those great kingdoms that we as a people built, the standards of which is just unimaginable today. Let's remind them of what the merchants and the travelers who visited the continent, and went back and told the people in their own towns about our kingdoms and our cities. They said they were astonished by what they saw. They said they saw tree-lined streets stretched for days and days. They said they saw magnificent fields that stretched for days and days. We were not a people who were starving. We were a people, from a continent of much. We had vast fields of corn, vast fields of grains. They saw them. They talked about it. When they came and they visited the continent, those visitors, those merchants, those travelers, they came and they found people dressed in the finest material of all different colors. They found people, our people, African people, dressed in the finest silks, dressed in the finest velvets. What does that tell us? That tells us that we had, looming industries. We had, industries that could make silks. Yeah, that could weave the threads to make the silks. We had the knowledge and the know-how of what plants to use and crush and turn into, making a beautiful velvet. They said the softest velvet you could find anywhere in the world came from the continent. They saw how we dressed in our richly colored garments. They saw the boots that our soldiers wore, the shoes that we wore, made from the levers that we ourselves had cultivated. They knew that we were a people that were civilized down to the marrow of our bones, because that's what they went back and said. From what they saw and from what they talked about meant that we were a knowledgeable people. We had technology. We knew how to make, industries. We created industries. We could spin the yarn. We could dye material to make a multitude of colors. There was so much that we could do. Yeah. So, I can hear the studio line ringing there, but we don't take calls on the studio line, and I'll give you the numbers in just a little while. Yeah. So, we were a people, a learned people. We created the alphabet. We invented mathematics. We invented medicine. We were a people who would document the skills of our people. We loved learning. We had libraries that stretched for miles. This is what they talked about. Yeah. And also I know from reading that, the skills that we had was such that, it couldn't be compared to anyone anywhere during those times around the world. So if we were a people back then who dressed in the finest materials, who dressed in the finest silks, who from our own hands and our own minds, knew what plants we could use, what worms we could use in order to create such beautiful fabrics and garments. If we knew as a people and had more confidence as a people, in ourselves and our ability back then to be able to do that, should we not then be encouraging and inspiring our children to rise themselves up and find that greatness inside of them? Yeah? What a crying shame to know that our most successful business people are those who are uneducated, those without the degrees and the PhDs and the masters and the doctorates. What a shame and disgrace to know that the vast majority of our successful entrepreneurs are those who haven't been miseducated into believing that they can't do. And so because they haven't been miseducated into believing that they can't do, they have a can-do attitude. And who are the ones who are trying to undo and uninspire those with the can-do attitude? It tends to be the ones who have been miseducated, have the great qualifications, and therefore, because they can't do and because they have been miseducated into believing that they can't do, will turn around and tell their uneducated brothers and sisters, that they can't do either, and sit there and rather than help them, will wait for them to fail and then stand by the wayside and say, see, I told you wouldn't be able to succeed. I told you wouldn't be able to do it. Not realizing that, these were the instructions that they were given through the curriculum by the Europeans who had written the curriculum to those who have managed to achieve, to have as a mindset. So let me see what I've got here from his book. I'm just pulling this section out. So at an African summer school 2 years ago, a white instructor gave a course on the African using for his text a work which teaches that whites are superior to blacks. Yeah? So an African at a summer school was actually using a book that had been written by a white instructor. And in this book, the text of it was actually teaching the children who that African teacher in the summer school was teaching that whites are superior to blacks. And when asked by one of the students why he used such a text, why he used such a textbook, the instructor replied that he wanted them to get that point of view. So even schools for Africans back then are places, it says, where they must be convinced of their inferiority. So from the works of our brother, what have we got to learn there? Have we not got to learn that if we then go out there and set up our Saturday schools, our summer schools, etc., that we have to make sure that we examine the textbooks that we're using to make sure that we're not reinforcing the negative stereotype, and really damaging, mind controlling, enslaved mentality that tells us that white is superior and black is inferior. Why? Because Carter Woodson says the thought of the inferiority of the African is drilled into him in almost every class he enters and in almost every book he studies. So my people, if you are not looking at the books that your children are studying, you need to do so. And if you are not providing your children with alternative African-centered education, you need to do so. Because to not do so means that you are allowing your beautiful son or daughter to go through school, go through college, and go through university being taught that his Africanness makes him inferior. He will go through the education system with that knowledge being drilled into them in almost every class that he enters. So make sure that at least every day before your child goes to school, you are reminding them that they are great, that they are intelligent, that they are superior, that they have greatness inside of them and that they belong to a race that is great. Instilling them self-black pride and also, very importantly, instilling to them race pride. It's pointless an individual has self-pride and no race pride. Why? Because then if they become successful, they will believe that they are successful because they themselves are great, but that their race is unsuccessful because they happen to belong to a race that is a failed race, because they have been indoctrinated, because that is what they are going to be persistently and consistently indoctrinated into believing. So it's up to us as adults, to be undoing the work of the system that likes to preach and teach white superiority and black inferiority. Is for us to be relentless in our unpicking, our unpacking, and our undoing of that mental enslaved mentality before our children finish schooling. Because otherwise, by the time they finish, it's usually too late. That's why, those who have the guts to challenge the system tend to be those who dropped out of school. Because they dropped out of the fooling system and they were, it's like that film Get Out. The ones who manage to succeed tend to be those who manage to get out of the miseducation system before it completely, tangled up their mind into that web of misindoctrination and into believing that they can't do. That's why our geniuses and our leaders are not necessarily going to be found in Oxford and Cambridge. They're going to be found in the Pews. They're going to be found on the council estates. They're going to be found, outside of the fooling system. Because they've decided to liberate their minds themselves. They decided that the schooling system is not telling them what they instinctively believe to be wrong. you know, and many of us do what we think is right by sending our children to school every day. But, you know, it is only right to do so if you yourself are also providing your children with an alternative education that makes them realize that they are great, they are superior, their race is superior, always was and always will be. So rise up, rise up, rise up, you mighty people. You can accomplish much. It's not just today, you know, we come into this world. We as a people have been here for millions of years. Yeah. And way back in our history, we can find volumes upon volumes and examples upon examples of our greatness. We had great states that were well ordered. We had states that were ordered down to minute detail. I'm quoting here. Yeah. We had those who came as travelers and as merchants and said, this is what they said, that we had great states, well ordered, down to the most minute detail. Yeah, that means that we had great civil engineers, we had great planners, we had great architects, we had great designers, we had great builders, we were organized as a people, we worked together as a people in harmony. We were able, when we came together back then, to achieve common goals and objectives. We were able back then as a people to work together in peace and harmony for hundreds of years. Why? Because no kingdom is built in a decade. Kingdoms take hundreds of years to build, and we had many great kingdoms. So that means that we work together day and night. We labor together in a trusting and supportive and encouraging way for generations. We moved stone together. We built monuments together. We created the materials that were needed in order to make these great monuments. Yeah, we were in tune with the universe and used the power of our mind to bring what didn't exist into existence. And we can still do that today. We are the ones as individuals who have the skills and ability to be able to elevate ourselves as a people out of the quagmire that we find ourselves in. Yeah? Great people build cities. Great people build kingdoms. Great people build empires. And we had great cities, and we have great cities today. It's just that we're not being told, you know, or reminded that our cities are great. No, the design of the enemy is forever to point to what is lacking and where we fall short or where we're not doing so well. That's what the system of today is designed and set up to do when it comes to talking about us as a people. Because, you know, they see us as a people that have to be governed, us as a people who have to be ruled, and us as a people who have to be kept in our place. And for them, our place is at the bottom of society, the bottom of the economic ladder, the bottom of the social ladder, the bottom of the cultural ladder, the bottom of the technological ladder, the bottom of the medicinal ladder, whatever ladder it is. As far as they are concerned, we have to be at the bottom. And the only way that they can keep us at the bottom is by continuing to fool us and make us as a people believe that we are powerless, when the reality is we are powerful. The only way they can keep us at the bottom is by instilling in our mind the belief, you know, that we are less than, when the reality is we are more than. By instilling in our mind and making us believe, that we as a people can't do, when the reality is that we can do. So for as long as others are controlling our mind, you know, through their miseducation system, through their media, through their programming, and through their multitude of other outlets, you know, that are that's penetrating our minds and our children's minds, for as long as they can continue to have that over us and make us believe that we as a people have never been anything, never achieved anything, and therefore never will. For as long as they can keep us believing that, we will always be what they have designed for us to be. Yes, those at the bottom of the rung of the ladder who are despised by the world. We are not the ones who were savages. We are not the ones who were uncivilized. We are not the ones, who were lacking at any point in our history, unless it was by the design of those outsiders who came in and invaded. No, we are the ones who had the flourishing industries. We are the ones who had the flourishing cities. Yeah? And it's those who like to, imitate and take over. Yeah? Who are the ones who lacked, who are the ones who didn't have, and who are the ones who came in, saw what we had, destroyed, looted, and ravaged and savaged, and then, took what they could to their lands to build their kingdoms and their cities over here. Yeah, whilst at the same time destroying all of what we had as a people back then. In fact, these same people who like to go on like, they're mighty and superior to us. Let me give you a little excerpt from a book that was sent to me this strong via WhatsApp in PDF form. We can learn so much from our WhatsApp journalists and educators. We can learn so much from them. And may you all continue to keep sharing, because sharing shows that you care. So it's important for us, as a people, in the same way that others like to analyze us, and critique us to the extent that they, use that information to control us. It's also important that we analyze European history for what it really is. Yeah. And so in the same way that we study our history and need to study and learn from our history, there's a lot of European history that, they are going to try and cover up. And so when we look at European history as they want to present to us through Hollywood or through their schools, and through, the eyes of colonizers, we have to look at their true history as well. And I looked at some of the pages of that PDF book called Mummies, Cannibals and Vampires, and it makes very interesting reading. In fact, I was so interested and so fascinated by some of these little known facts of their history that I had to come and share it with you. So, Galaxy family, our wonderful Galaxy family listeners out there, get round your radios. If your children are in the room, get them around the radio. Come close. Let's get together as a family, like we would have done back in the days under the tree. Yeah. So today we're a radio family. Let's get together around the radio, because this book actually reveals, an aspect of European history that lasted for well over 200 years that has been swept under the carpet. So why are they sweeping? If they're, as a people, so proud of their history, why would they want to sweep aspects of it under the carpet? Why would they not want to study and look at these aspects of their history instead of finding so much time to find aspects of our history, where they can demonize us? Yeah? Obviously, because they don't want us to see them for what they really were and therefore what they really are. So they've come up, with this awful derogatory and fabricated version of our history, and a totally, unrealistic and fabricated, elevated, mantra of their history, hoping that we as Africans will never really find out, who they really are, because we're so busy, being kept busy that we don't have time to do the studies. Yeah. Well, in the same way, where we have many of our young brothers and sisters these days, intermarrying and choosing European partners. In the same way, before you would bring, an individual into your house, you would want to find out a bit about them. Similarly, before we invite individuals into our house on the continent, in the Caribbean, or anywhere at all, or even before we come and join, individuals in their house, in their countries, we need to not only, take into consideration what we have been indoctrinated to believe through their miseducation system, through their television and their magazines or anything, but we need to get up and we need to find out what their traits and innate characteristics are as Europeans for ourselves. We are the ones who need to do the works and have that overstanding, and then share the information with our sons and daughters, especially before they go cohabiting with them. Yeah. So, we are a people who, especially on the continent, tend to have an open migration system. We allow people from all over the world to come in, and we don't necessarily spend the time that's needed to be devoted to studying their history and realizing who these people really are. Yeah, so let's do a little bit of that right now. So, from the book, one of the things that we are rarely taught about in school, remember, we're taught a lot about their kings and queens, and they boast about Henry VIII and King Charles I and II and this one and that one, But what they forget to tell us, that this book reveals, is that James I actually refused corpse medicine. Corpse medicine? What on earth is corpse medicine? How many of us know about the history of corpse medicine? Well, according to this book, which is a historical book based on historical factual information, Charles II made his own corpse medicine. Charles I was made into corpse medicine. So this alone is a quite unusual view of England's first three Stuart monarchs. So to clarify it, we must also add that James I was very much in the minority, and that Sir Theodore Turquet de Meniere, the doctor who prescribed powdered human skull for him, was one of the most eminent practitioners in all of Europe. So let me just rewind that for a second, because there was a lot in there. So James I was very much, it said, the minority when it came to refusing corpse medicine. Why? Because during that time in European history, corpse medicine was considered the norm for those in high society, and doctors who prescribed powdered human skull as medicine was revered as an eminent and important and celebrated practitioner all over Europe. The book says we must add too that royal cannibals such as Charles II, Francis I, Christian IV of Denmark and William III were just the tip of the social iceberg. For well over 200 years in early modern Europe, the rich and the poor, the educated and the illiterate, all participated in cannibalism on more or less routine basis. Whoa. You know them love talk about we are the ones who are cannibals. You know how they love through their European history books, through their Tarzan shows, and through their other programs. They like to persistently and consistently portray us as Africans as cannibals. You know, the Tarzan shows that show, the Africans around a big pot and the Europeans in the pot. We've seen the cartoon caricatures. We've seen the cartoon movies, and we've seen the Tarzan movies where they portray us as cannibals, when the real history is, my people, that they were the ones who were the cannibals. How many of us were taunted in school and called a cannibal? How many of us were told off of the back of the Tarzan movies, because they believed what they saw on the television, that we were cannibals? A lie. That was a lie from the pit of hell. Yeah? I've been to Africa. Africa is full of arable land, lush with fruits and vegetables and herbs, and so is the Caribbean. there are so many different types of animals in the Caribbean, yeah, on a scale that Europe can only dream of, which is why they have their zoos. There are so many different animals in Africa, yeah, that why is it with so much vegetation, so much herbs, so many different trees with so many different fruits that you can eat from, why would our people want to resort to cannibalism? That is such a lie. That is such a misrepresentation of our people. Yet many of us for decades went through the schooling system and had to endure ridiculing and insults in their schools and being, looked at and referred to as cannibals when they were the ones who were the cannibals. Why? Because Europe is a land without Africa that is barren. The historical reality and the facts, are that for over 200 years, Europeans practiced cannibalism out of necessity and in the belief that eating another human being would bring the cannibal eater good health. Whoa. So listen, it wasn't even just the ordinary people that were practicing cannibalism. It was the royalty that practiced it, and the sad reality is that even our African royalty, who died and were buried in their tombs, when these European tomb raiders raided the tombs of some of our royal kings and queens, what they did was they powdered our ancestors into drugs, and our Egyptian mummies, they powdered them into drugs and they ate them as medicine. Even the bodies, it is said, that were drowned in the North African desert sandstorms were dried and made into drugs. Wow, back to the book. Later in the era, the corpse of hanged criminals were collected and offered a new and less exotic source of human flesh. Human blood was swallowed. Boy, oh boy. So, when we watch these vampire movies, yeah, and we watch these Frankenstein movies and we thought that it was just entertainment, little did we know that they were actually sharing aspects of their history amongst each other, right before our eyes, right in our plain sight. And most of us as African children growing up watching these Frankenstein and vampire movie and being frightened by them was totally unaware that this information was coming from their history and had significant historical place in their history. It was relevant to their culture. They were swallowing human blood. And the book says sometimes fresh and hot blood direct from a donor's body. They say a donor's body. Did the dead person really have a choice? It said sometimes dried, powdered or distilled with alchemical precision. Human fat was one of the most enduring substances of all. It was usually applied externally in the form of ointments or plasters. Certain parts of the bones of the skull was swallowed as powder or in liquid distillations. In London chemists, hear this one, shops. In London chemists' shops, one could see entire human skulls for sale. Some had a growth of botanical moss, which could be powdered and used to treat nosebleeds and other forms of hemorrhaging. Both skull, bone, and the moss of the skull, should most authorities agreed, be derived from a man who had met a violent death, preferably by hanging or drowning. These, it says in the book, were the most common drugs derived from the human body. Wow. So, what is the impact likely to be on the DNA of a person whose ancestors for over 200 years was actually feasting on human flesh, human blood, or powdered body parts. We, when it comes to reparations, are talking about, the hundreds of years, of suffering that we endured during the days of the transatlantic enslavement of our people. And we are coming to the realization of the lingering post-traumatic damage that period during our lifetime heaped upon us. But what we don't do as a people is analyze the histories of those who we live amongst, and then, begin to realize that surely 200 years, of them eating human flesh, drinking human blood, or powdering body parts and consuming it as medicine, leaves them, therefore, with this vampiristic, Frankensteinistic mentality. So is it a wonder why today, there is the warlike, that come through my ear. Sorry about that. I had the earphones up and the phone line up, and so 899 has come through the airways, and you are welcome. I have been talking for over an hour now, and I've got so much more to say. But you know what? We love the interaction of our brothers and sisters here on the Big G. So let me give out the number so that, those of you who maybe don't have the number, and should you want to give us a call and interact, you can do so. The number is, if you're local, 0207 193 0174. Let me bring in our first caller for today, caller 899. Greetings, caller 899. Who do we have on the line?
Hello, good morning. This is Aston.
Grand rising, brother Aston. How you doing?
I'm blessed. Yeah.
Oh, wonderful to hear your deep melanin, rich sounding lion voice there with the smooth melanin tones.
Yeah, man. Thank you. I appreciate that. I've got an interest in art. Yeah. Well, my mother and myself have an interest in art. And when we go to the National Portrait Gallery, there are photos. There are paintings, right? Periodic paintings that depict the eating of flesh, right? These are in the religious area, the religious paintings area, right? And you can see that when there's a feasting, well, a lot of these paintings are based around feasting. Right, or celebrations of death, right? And if you study the paintings properly, you will see limbs that are there on the dining tables, or even actually being eaten, right? So this is a thing that has been, or a practice that has been going for many years, in early historical evidence or in the British society.
That's right, my brother. And you know what? In this book, Mummies, Cannibals and Vampires, it says that this practice continued right up to Victorian times. So that's not so long ago. Yeah. Because and the thing is that even if it is painted, even if it is pointed out, right? They will say, "Oh no, this was a ritual execution." Is what they try to cover it as, that the person was drawn and quartered and things like this, And at the same time, you could see literally like the children being fed the flesh of the victims or the dead. That's right.
Even eating the soul as well.
So there's a cover up.
That is what they say.
Yes.
That it derives from.
So you're telling us, my brother, that, although the history, there's evidence of this history, even in their national art museums, of this barbaric practice of cannibalism. They try to cover up what is staring us in the face. They try and cover it up by pretending that, it was just a religious feast or festival that was happening at a particular time. No, for over 200 years, from their kings and queens right down to the lowest of low on the streets, they were eating bodies.
And even with the artists, well, right, a lot of their paintings were made from ground bones, right, and organ as well to do the colorings of the paintings as well. You understand? So the use of human bodies in many aspects, right, is not an unusual thing as well, because as you see, I mean, like we've moved on in society, right? But even the cloning of genes and things like this is a normal practice. It's a normal practice for a lot of this society.
And my brother, it's so important that we are aware as a people, of this gross part of their history, because we talk about, for example, organ trafficking. Yeah, and you've just said cloning.
It's very much alive.
Look, yes, and you see, unless we put it within the context of their history, where they, and remember, during these times, my brother, the entire population was involved in one way or another, in the cannibalism. There were grave diggers who were burying people today and digging them up tomorrow and selling them to these Frankensteins of the likes who called themselves doctors.
Oh, yes.
And we go into their hospitals, and wonder why they want to kill us off, and wonder why they would prefer to inject us so that we die slowly, rather than, do all that they can to make us live.
There's one thing, I know it may gross a few people out, right? But let's talk the truth, right? When I was younger, right, like 40 years ago, 5 years ago, right, I used to walk around like Deptford and everything like that, the place where I used to live, right? And there'd be stray cats everywhere. There'd be stray dogs everywhere, right? But now you don't see any of them.
Are true.
Well,
Are true.
So
and but that is largely attributed, or so it is suggested, to the the increase in Chinese restaurants, because as we know, they eat cats and dogs, don't they?
Well, if you want to allude to that, then so be it. But anyhow,
well, unless all those YouTube videos,
it's very rare you will see as we call it, domesticated animal moving in the streets as they used to be.
True. It's absolutely true. And you know what? I can see Rasso Shing trying to come through, so that's reminding me that even in Jamaica, I remember seeing a WhatsApp video of all these donkey bones, where it was claimed the Chinese...
It was a field of them, isn't it?
Yes, that's right. Were teething people donkeys and using it as meat in their restaurants. There was complaints about dogs that were going missing as well, and that ending up in curries and stews, So unless we study and understand the animalistic, cannibalistic, vampirish nature of these people, how are we then going to be able to understand why there's a situation today of organ trafficking, people going missing, people being buried without their organs?
We are so removed. I'm sorry, but we are so removed living within these city limits, right, that we wouldn't even know how to slaughter an animal humanely, and to actually remove the meat from the bone and the offal from the internals. You understand?
It's true. Yes.
Because and the thing is that you can see if many of us had to do that on a daily basis, I would say overnight there would be lot of vegetarian.
Yeah, you're probably right. Yeah.
I'll give thanks here. I just let my brother Shoshin come in and the talk as well. Yeah.
Wonderful. So my brother Aston, Aston, please remind us, which gallery was it that you went to where you saw?
Right. I've seen it in the National Portrait Gallery, which is Trafalgar Square. All right. Okay. Yeah, it's mainly in those, and it's in the religious areas is where you would see those type of pictures of depictions of those type of things. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much for your interjection there, Brother Aston. Just confirming, what the author of this book is saying. There's evidence out there. Thank you, my brother Aston.
Okay.
One love.
Oh, my sister, sorry.
One love.
Bless you there.
Yes, one love to you. So bringing in our Raso Shing next. Just to remind the family that we do have a different phone system from the stacking system, which means that we can only pick up one call at a time. So if you do call in when another caller's on the phone, please do wait until they finish and then call back, just as our brother Ras Hoshing has done. Grand Rising, brother Ras Hoshing.
Blessing, greetings, my beloved sister Shanice, and blessed greetings to the Galaxy family. As what we always say, in the presence of the supreme creator of heaven and earth, that created the moon, stars, and created the first man, the first woman, and endowed him with intellectual knowledge and the spiritual incarnation of the great black man and the great black woman. Rise up, you great African. My sister, the whole reality of what I've been hearing, you are forgetting that the Chinese are a bunch of cannibals. They also, remember, it was from the east came the worshipping of reincarnation. Reincarnation is what the Chinese believe in. They believe that in eating you and eating me, they can become you and become me. That is why the Chinese eat everything. Everything that flies, everything that crawls, everything that swims. Because the Chinese philosophy is that he can be reincarnated. Now the practices of eating ones, as you know, we've always said that when Marcus Messiah Garvey went to England, being the greatest threat to white supremacy, what do you think the royals did to Marcus? They fed on him, they ate him, and drank his blood, because this is a practice that has been entrenched in Europe from since the days of the caveman. They used to eat each other because they had no other source of food.
True.
Entrenched. So when you said its practices came up to the Victorian, my sister, what has become a norm within their own so-called genetical makeup? They are still eating people today. The same Europe, the same royal family, the same so-called Illuminati. Why do you think Britain has collected so many skulls of all the so-called people that she claims she studied? When you go into the British Museum and you see for yourself the dead skulls, and which skull did they particularly after? The African skull, the African body. So we know that between the Far East and the Far West, these people are cannibals, my sister. So it doesn't surprise us that these people have no love for humanity. They have no consciousness, because when you see what the European rich has done and feel comfortable, how can you wipe out a race? 1920, 1930. Look what you did to our Aborigine family. So if you can do those things in the 1920s and 30s, my sister, what were you doing in your dark ages? So because you're now seated at the table with so many knives and forks to feast on human body. We believe that you've become a civilized. You're not. You're still a cannibal because you still believe that you're superior to all other man. And for your belief to come in, you believe by eating us, you can accomplish it. And this is a fact, Sister Shanice. So do not think that we are making accusation. The royal family and the rich people of the world, that's what they do. They eat the body of the poor. And particularly the black man and the black woman, the black child. So all of the Catholic Church, what did they do? They used children, they ate them. They used the skin to make candles and the oil from them. So the practices of these people, when we see the films that we used to watch, as what you said earlier, Dracula, and when you see the renaissance of the new Dracula film, the werewolves and the so-called the vampires are now lovers and family. And these are the things showing in their movies.
Yes.
They've always showed us who they are.
Yes, it's true, and we didn't realize it. Brother Russell Shing, I've got Ricky Crawford trying to come through. Richard Crawford trying to come through.
Bring him in.
Okay.
I'm hanging up now.
Okay, my brother. One love. Okay, sorry. Our brother Richard, if you're listening, please call back again. Just want to thank Ras Ho Shing calling in all the way from Jamaica, Jamtown, Jamaica, there to interact with us on our show and just reminding us, of other aspects of European history that we're not taught about in the schools. And it's so important, that we are aware of these histories because, for those of us who think that history is not important, we are just so wrong indeed. Yeah. So, we do need to consider, if we have a people and are living amongst the people, who used to eat the skulls, the bones and the flesh and drink the blood of human beings. And as our brother Rasso Shing says, still continue to practice in some secret societies today, and we have our brothers and sisters drowning in the Mediterranean Sea in their hundreds of thousands. What's happening to their bodies? We know that their bodies are washing up onto the European shoreline, and we know that they're collecting these bodies. Yeah. I mean, I even watched a WhatsApp video the other day. It was just so tragic to watch. There were over 100, I would estimate, of our brothers mainly packed on a little dinghy. Pack up like sardines on a little dinghy boat, sailing in the Mediterranean, and they were being filmed by what looks like probably a big fish trawler. And it went past the fish trawler, and then it came back by the side of the fish trawler. And you know what the people them did from the fish trawler? They threw a rope down to the people in that boat. And you know what the people them in the boat did? Every single one of them, almost at the same time, dived to try and climb up the one rope. In the 4 minutes or so that I was watching that video, I never see a single person reach the top of that rope. Yet there were so many bodies as a result of that rope floating in the sea. And there's a lesson in that. You see, when somebody who don't look like you, don't care about you, throw your rope, before you run, go grab the rope, yeah? And I see underneath you and you can't swim, stop and take a check, yeah? Why we don't help up our one another? Instead, what they was doing, them a climb on one another back, wear out the one who was trying to come up before one go up and help up the next one. Anyway, calls are coming in. Our brother Richard Crawford has called back. I am so delighted to have him on the line. Greetings, brother Richard.
Greetings.
Oh, my brother, you're coming through loud and direct from Jamaica. Thank you.
Okay, great.
Now, brother Richard, I don't know if you was hearing, if you were listening to the show prior to calling in, but I'd kind of gone off on a bit of a tangent, talking about our miseducation, really. Our brother, Dr. Abu, before my show, was playing the audio book, The Miseducation of the Negro by Carter G. Woodson. And, you know, I was saying that a lot of what our brother had to say in the book when he wrote it back in 1933 or so is as relevant today as it was back then. Brother Richard, is this a book that you're familiar with?
I don't know if I've seen that one, but I think I'm familiar with the miseducation of the Negro, or the miseducation of the black man.
Yes.
It's been a major crisis
Yes.
in the world in recent times for black people in particular.
Yes.
All right? And it's good that one has to look at that. I think that the miseducation, as it were, of the black man has been very dominant over the last 2,000 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
Very dominant. The education or miseducation of the black man in that time has been carried out by the white man,
Mm-hmm.
or carried out by the oppressor or ruler of the black man.
Mm-hmm. And the book also shows, just to interject there, Brother Richard, and what the book also shows us very graphically is that even black men, even Africans, even those of us, you know, who go into the teaching system, because of the education that we've had, we continue to perpetuate the same misinformation and indoctrination of white superiority, black inferiority. And for as long as we continue using the European curriculum, which celebrates everything Western, everything European, and at the same time criticizes and condemns everything African and makes us believe that we've never had any thing of significance and never will do, and oppresses and depresses the mind and crushes the spark of genius in the young black child, you know, that is the system that we still continue to run with right up until today.
Yes, and it was so designed.
Mm-hmm.
So to get around that,
Mm-hmm.
some people have been able to, because of their reading and their work and what they have experienced.
Yes.
But many black people do not understand and realize where the black man really is coming from.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that one simple way to try and put this message across to as many as possible is to recognize and to accept the fact that the first Homo sapien, the first man on earth, quote unquote, would have been a black man.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody else came from that source.
Mm-hmm.
So the black man is the original human being, tracked down and traced through history, through the researchers and all the different persons who have combed history and gone into detail examining the Sphinx and the Egyptian other marvels and India and China. The Chinese are derivatives of black people.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's a derivative of the black man. So ironically, when they're saying that, oh boy, you black people are idiots, you are the descendants of monkeys and gorillas. If that is so, then everybody is a descendant of a monkey or a gorilla, because if we were even to believe that, then it's the gorilla, then the black man, then the white man, then the Chinaman, then everybody else.
And the sad reality is, though, my brother, is that when our children go to school and they read this sort of nonsense in the books, you know, that they are given to read and are given to study and are led to believe, you know, is the case, that, you know, we are the derivative of monkeys, and that we are inferior and the white man is superior. When, you know, they go through the schooling system and this is what's being taught to them day after day, strong after strong, you know, term after term, you know, is it hardly surprising that the schooling system is then turning out, you know, Africans with PhDs, masters and degrees who are unable to help themselves, unable to help their race, despite the education that they have, because of the education that they've had. But, you know, I take on board what you said, that nevertheless some of our people still, despite that miseducation, manage to turn around and do good, not just for themselves, but for their people. And you are one such individual who has done well, not just for yourself, for your people, you know. So my brother Richard Crawford, there are some who may be listening to the show who, you know, don't know who you are, maybe, you know, haven't read your bio or don't know anything about you. So please introduce yourself to the Galaxy family.
Well, I'm with someone who I myself am a lecturer. I teach in a university, used to teach in a university. That's one. And I have been fortunate. I have lived in Jamaica and I've been able to visit so many countries across the globe. And that helps in your education. You know, I've always said, boy, it would be wonderful if we could get our people to just travel and see other places in the world. Mm-hmm. Out of that comes the fact that, yes, I've learned, and many of us have learned, for example, and I go back to my point, that King Solomon, who's this famous man in the Bible and everywhere else, was a black man. King Solomon was regarded, has been regarded as one of the richest men ever in history. Mansa Musa, another black leader, was one of the other richer men in world history. The point I'm making, Hannibal, all of these people, all of these great generals and conquerors were really and truly black people. I've been in a studio, not a studio, rather, I've been in a museum. And I mean, right where you are, many people can go to the London Museum and you see artifacts and treasures stolen from black nations and are being masqueraded and paraded in England. But I have been in a museum where I've seen a painting 2,500 years old of John the Baptist. Who was John the Baptist? A Rasta man. On that original 2,500-year-old painting. Not everybody gets a chance to see that. So when you see that, you realize what has happened. Now, over that period of time, and I think I heard you speaking earlier, when black civilizations, Egypt and other areas, and in India too, and even in China, because we must remember, you know, that this racism is not only directed against black people. There is a strong racism in the world against all non-white people.
True.
That's the important thing. And non-white people must understand this. So there came a time when in the last 2,000 years, I think, as I've said before, the white man has been able to take control of the many countries and has used warfare particularly. And it is his time now. He has set up churches and religions that tend to suggest, if he did exist, Jesus Christ was a white man. There's nothing could be any further from the truth. And this is one of the biggest delusions that black people have. That the greatest man, Jesus Christ, the Son of God, was a white man. That's rubbish. He couldn't have been. He was a Palestinian. He was a black man. And therefore, that foundation coming through the church and the schools, as you rightly say, has been carried out over the last 2,500 years. And we are now having to recognize that this has to change, and you have to re-educate, yes, de-brainwash everybody and re-educate. A simple story, a simple piece of evidence. If you know a black man and if you know a white woman, cannot this black man and this white woman have a child? So therefore, this thing is about humanity, human beings. The color of the skin, in a sense, is peripheral. The human is the human being, and all human beings can interbreed with each other, and that's a fact of life. So think about that.
So, our brother Richie, you've been involved in politics for most of your life, I think. You've been in strategic positions where you've advised governments, etc. And you're still involved, aren't you, in politics in Jamaica at a strategic level. And, you know, we've come into contact with each other, particularly around the whole ganja industry that we're trying to encourage Jamaica to embrace for the benefit of its population, and not just, you know, for the benefit of foreign corporations. You know, it's something that our brother Ras Hoshing as well has been speaking passionately about here on the Big G. There's a petition out at the moment. We're trying to encourage our people to sign the petition. But so if you were to add your voice, my brother Richard, to, you know, this whole campaign to try and, you know, make the powers that be, who have been miseducated in the education system, you know, see, you know, the importance and the value of this industry for Jamaica and the difference that it could make to the economy of Jamaica, you know, what would your message be to the Jamaican government and to the diaspora here to try and help, you know, in realizing that vision? Please, my brother.
Well, particularly to the diaspora, particularly to all black people across the globe, we have to remember, we have to know that one of the main reasons why the black population is so stripped of resources, so poor and downtrodden, and live in the conditions that they live in, is because all the brain power and the inventions of the black man has been taken away and used by the white man to keep him in perpetual poverty. Mm-hmm. Blood plasma, the traffic light, the computer, the telephone, all these marvels of the world were invented by black men, and they were stolen from the black inventor, and then everybody has become multimillionaires out of these inventions. And only occasionally, as we say, when we read in some of the books and speak with some of the de-brainwashed people, we realize the enormous contribution that black people have made to the development of the world, but have not received the benefits of it. Mm-hmm. That is a critical thing. So now here we come again to another issue, and we will keep coming to them, I imagine. Here we come to an issue, the issue of food, let's put it that way. This is very critical. Mm-hmm. And its derivatives, the issue of ganja, the issue of herbs and medicines across the globe. All herbs and medicines that are used to treat people, much of those herbs and medicines have been taken away and converted into what is called pharmaceuticals, medicine, pills, tablets that you go into a pharmacy and buy. Mm-hmm. It comes from a plant invariably. The majority of those plants come from countries like Africa, mm-hmm. and other Mediterranean type countries that grow these things prolifically. So it is with ganja in Jamaica. Now, since we are in this position, one of the critical things that black people have to do is take repossession of the production of food. That was one of the things that Marcus Garvey saw very early and told us, you can't even call yourself a nation if you cannot feed yourself. And that's a major crisis. What do you think is causing all that drift of people out of Africa and out of other countries as refugees on the boats and so forth and so on? Starvation, no food. You have to go to one place to the other. People walk still thousands of miles across Africa because there's no food and no water in this area. Therefore, you have to find the water and the food somewhere else. So food is the base of economic development. And that is what we have to get back to. You see, in the education or the miseducation that you talk about, that's exactly what you have been educated to be. A hairy-fairy professor of something or the other, and they don't teach you or don't want you to produce to earn the money to make yourself self-sufficient. It is a master plan to keep people subjugated. Therefore, begin, if you will, at the beginning. And we have this problem in Jamaica, and I don't know how many other countries have it, but many of our people in Jamaica, and I can understand it, don't want to go back to farming, don't want to grow food because they say it reminds them of the days of slavery. If food wasn't that important, why would a white man enslave you and take you out of Africa and bring you to Jamaica, another place, just to plant food? It is food, is the products of the soil that has made that country in which you are broadcasting from this morning so rich. At one point in time, Jamaica was the richest country on God's earth. The next richest country was Haiti, next door. And all of that wealth went to England and to France. So therefore, that's how it happened. And then when you get that wealth, you have that wealth and you multiply it and use it again to continue to subordinate the very people who created it for you. So you have to go back to first base. Now the opportunity comes where we are in a dilemma too now, because the food production has become really very haphazard, and the food production from the big farms that are controlling the production is really basically a method by which they have to make as much money as possible. So genetically modified food which is not good for you, which will make you sick, is being produced in order to feed people and sent around the world. So again, even the food that you first created is being used to subjugate you and make you sick. So now, in that case, here's an opportunity where ganja, which is a native herb coming out of India thousands of years ago, and even in China they had it some time ago. And by the way, China is just about the richest country in the world right now. And by the way, China just very quietly is one of the biggest producers of ganja in the world. Call it hemp or whatever other variation or cousin that it produces. They don't boast about it. But the Chinese, as you know, run the world at this point in time because they produce food as the basic area in which to feed their population. So anybody who has to import food from somebody else begins at the bottom of the ladder. So here's the opportunity now that people must come together and find ways, black people must find ways to come together to plant and grow that essential product called food, herbs, spices, all of these things to live a healthy life, and most importantly, to accumulate the kind of money that will help to make the black man free of the control of the white predators of the world. And therefore, the opportunity is for the investment of people in the diaspora, people of similar nature all over the world, to come together and invest that money collectively into enterprises that will earn a significant profit for them and their children coming down the line. Let's look at one example. Despite the strategy and the outlook of this country. Let's look at Israel. Israel, funnily enough, is a country that they say that produces food out of the desert. And through drip irrigation, they don't even have water. But how did they do the things that they do and have food to eat in Israel? Because the diaspora, the Israeli diaspora, living in other countries of the world, over the years have sent the money into Israel to produce these very basic ingredients. And that is part of the success, if you call it, and it is, of Israel in being able to feed itself and to grow enough food, ironically, to export to other countries of the world. Now, if you want to take a page out of somebody's book, that's a page that leads you to independence and glory and wealth. And look what the Israelis turn around. Now that they are able to feed themselves and live a particular kind of way, they are persecuting and running black people out of Israel. And when they say that they are Jews, who are Jews? The original Jews of the world are black people.
That's right.
What a story, huh? So it's a matter, yes, everywhere you turn, you have to go back to the basics. And understand that, yes, black people ruled the world 8,000 years ago, 5,000 years ago. And then eventually, I would imagine, having subordinated the white man eventually got a chance to turn the table and has now turned around with, I would imagine, revenge in his heart and in his soul to then treat black people the way they are being treated. So you got to shake that off. You're right. I mean, wherever you go, the danger is in the miseducation. At the height of the British Empire, when they sang every day, the sun never sets on the British Empire, never sets. And when it had reached to the point, to that point, they had to discuss the issue in England, in London. How are we going to manage a small country like ours? How are we going to manage to control and rule these millions of people around the world in our British Empire? And it was the famous Cecil Rhodes. Cecil Rhodes, the great man who gave the Rhodes Scholarship that takes you to Oxford University and Cambridge University to study. He said, very simple, my colleagues, we won't be able to get there physically to control them. So what we'll do is divide them and rule them. Let them kill each other. That is what has happened from Cecil Rhodes' days. Black people fight against black people. Divide and rule. And it is an orchestrated, deliberate strategy in how you control people. And we got to wake up and stop killing each other. We got to stop robbing each other. We got to work together. You know. So that's the opportunity. That's the miseducation that has to be corrected. And that's the opportunity that presents itself to us. If you come together in that way and you know what you're coming together for and you can see the goal, then it's a matter of investing in that goal. Yeah, some of us may not turn it around quickly enough in the next 5-10 years, but your children will have a blessed future, a chance of a future, and that is what we have to do. So I believe that Rasso Shing and others have been saying to the diaspora, look, there's an opportunity. Let's get together. Let's invest in ways in which we can make money and liberate ourselves from this still existing colonial rule. You know, the governor might have gone and this one might have gone, but as Bob used to say, the critical thing is to emancipate yourself from the mental slavery. See, that is a dangerous thing that's been left behind. How we think, what we don't know, and what we know. That's a critical issue. The mental slavery.
Absolutely.
You can't see it, but it's there. Right?
It's there in the mindset of a lot of our people, and it's that mindset that's preventing us as a people from advancing and progressing at the rate that we could potentially be doing so. So in terms of the ganja industry in Jamaica, actually Ras Hoshing hasn't been talking about us as the diaspora actually investing in ganja in Jamaica. What the campaign has been about is about, us as the diaspora initially coming together to put pressure on the government, the Jamaican government, through this petition to allow, ordinary farmers in Jamaica to access, that lucrative industry, because at the moment, presently, he's saying to us, is that the majority of small farmers are being excluded from accessing the ganja industry, mainly because of the costs, the fees, the requirements and the conditions that have been attached to accessing the market through the Cannabis Licensing Authority. And what we're asking for through the petition, as guided by Ras Hoshing, is for an independent ganja licensing authority. The reason we want a ganja licensing authority and not the cannabis one is because the cannabis one is a GMO version of ganja, and what we want is for ganja to be what would you call it? It's recognized and patented, that's it, to be patented as the Jamaican brand and strand of this miracle herb, because the musicians from Jamaica have done the works to internationalize and to bring awareness of the medicinal benefits of ganja. And before any other country runs off with the name ganja, they want the government to patent ganja and also patent the industry in a way that allows the farmers to grow it in its traditional way, which is to grow it freely, not cage up, under certain conditions that the Cannabis Authority is requiring of them to do. You have suggested investment in the industry. That is obviously a huge potential. A lot of people from the UK actually send money via remittance already to Jamaica, but there isn't that's done at a very at a family level and a social level. But how can that now happen at a economic level that's going to help to build industries? So, for example, there would need to be some kind of structure put in place, either a company with shares of some sort that people can buy shares into, that would enable people to then maybe set up a standing order of X amount per month that goes towards the actual building of the industry and an investment that they would get a return on. So, but that side of things is yet to be even discussed in any detail, or we've yet to be presented with anything that looks like a model that people could, who might be interested, get involved in investing in. We're not even there yet, because it seems that ordinary farmers, small farmers, are not getting the support that they need from the government in order to grow, so that they can access the market at the level at which the Cannabis Authority is setting its criteria. So we're at the ground zero, we're at the base stage, as you'd say, the first base stage with regards to accessing the ganja industry. And this is just to get the government itself to wake up and see the potential benefit for Jamaica. The potential benefit from that one produce is phenomenal. So it's something like Colorado has earned over $1 billion last year, I believe, from its medicinal and recreational ganja alone. Just imagine what Jamaica could do with the equivalent of $1 billion US dollars. Imagine what that could do for the schools and the hospitals, for creating jobs and opportunities for those who are unemployed today. That's what we're trying to tackle. That's the vision that we're trying to get the government to see and to embrace and to run with.
Yeah, it's two sides of the same coin. But unfortunately, from my perspective, if you sit and you wait for the government to do it, it's not going to happen.
I hear you.
Let's be frank. The diaspora has been sending millions of dollars home to Jamaica for years, and other parts of the world too. In truth and in fact, the diaspora, the Jamaican diaspora's remittances into Jamaica basically keep the country afloat. That's how important that money is. But that money, when it comes in, it goes into the banks that are owned by the same white oppressors. And yes, that is the foreign exchange that is used to continue in return to import more goods into the country. The point is, as you said, I have been in politics for a long time, long enough. And we have been fighting this fight for the longest while. When Michael Manning was the Prime Minister of Jamaica, we came to England pretty often and we brought some success, but nevertheless trying to develop and build a vibrant relationship between the diaspora and ourselves at home in Jamaica. Let us recall something else too, that many members of the diaspora were encouraged years ago in the 1950s to sell their land and move out of Jamaica because the bauxite companies were getting the land to mine the bauxite in it. All they got was the sale price for the land on the top, nothing about the bauxite underneath. And it served another purpose too, because at that time, Jamaicans, and I guess other black people, but mostly we know for sure, Jamaicans were welcomed into Britain. Why? Because Britain had just been destroyed by World War II. And it is the Jamaicans and black people that sat there and rebuilt that country.
That's right.
So, I mean, come on, let's understand what really happened here. Okay? And out of that earning, many people, thank God, have made a good living, been able to send to their children in Jamaica, etc. So it's two issues at the same time. Governments tend to act only when pressure is put on them. Governments tend to act in the interest of the people only when it's election time. So we have to remember these things. And when I say, yes, of course the petitions and all of these things are part of the strategy. The other part of the strategy is that there is land in Jamaica that members of the diaspora can buy and own and use it for their own housing and other developments and to plant food and to plant ganja. So that is how it is. It is true. I mean, look, the people who may be coming and are able to get favored results because of the structure of the regulations in Jamaica, which are not encouraging to the small farmer.
That's right.
They come and they get the land that is in Jamaica to lease, to use, to plant ganja. So why can't we do the same thing? Why can't members of the diaspora do the same thing? And they will get that land to lease and will continue to produce, and we will continue to buy from them. Now they come into my country, lease the land, and then sell me the products, when in truth and in fact, the laws prevent the small farmers in Jamaica from buying and owning that land. So therefore, the diaspora has in its power and in its membership. The Jamaica National Bank, we have banks, you have different kinds of people out there, there's money out there, but it's not being used in a concerted effort. And that is what we have to de-brainwash people to understand how best to use that money and how can you use it. For years now, the diaspora has been asking to get the right to vote in Jamaica in elections. The answer has been up to now, no. One politician went so far in Jamaica to say, to hell with you, vote where you live. The politicians are not going to give the diaspora members the right to vote. So that would determine the future land policy, determine who gets what. No, they're not going to do that because they know the diaspora have become a wiser group of people and they can't control them as they control the Jamaican electorate down here. That these are the things we have to understand. This is the real world. And nobody's giving anybody anything in this real world. So you got to fight for it. You got to organize yourself for it, whether it's through petitions, the power of most powerful thing in the world to fight for your rights is a combined people working for the same purpose. That's why I said the unity of the people and a master plan that says, all right, we will do this, we will do that, is the way to go. Otherwise, we will be scattered around, continually scattered. And those who are, you see, it's easy, when you're at the top of the ladder, you know, it's easy to look around and see what's happening and do all kind of things to keep the people at the bottom of the ladder at the bottom of the ladder. So that has got to change. So I'm saying that it's all part and parcel of the very same struggle. The petitions, we have been doing work in Jamaica in recent times at the university and elsewhere in this issue of fighting for our reparations. The British government owes Jamaica, what is it, calculated at as a start, 18 billion pounds.
It should be in the trillions. I think there's a lot more counting yet to go. It ought to be in the trillions.
We're scratching the surface.
That's right.
And if we went to if we were smart enough, we could probably go to the International Court of Justice and say, my lord, this whole country, Buckingham Palace, Tower of London, belongs to us. Mm-hmm. Our ancestors made it. Mm-hmm. Money to really
financed it.
We want to take control of England.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. True.
Might sound far-fetched, but that's how we have to think.
Well, that's where we have to get to, but we will never get there through under their education system, because as we started, where we started from in terms of the education, it's used to oppress us. It's used to, squash, any spark of genius that might be among us, and that's the design of it. My brother, you said so much there, really interesting, and we're looking here as members of the diaspora, to see how we can leverage power, amongst ourselves here to support our brothers and sisters there in Jamaica, and we hear what you're saying about the need for us also to organize so that we can be a more effective lobby at an economical level. You mentioned that there was a lobby here of the diasporas who wanted the right to vote in Jamaica, but a certain government minister said, vote where you are, to hell with that. Who was that, by the way? Which government minister was that?
Well, there are two famous ex-prime ministers that hold that same view. One from one party and one from the other party.
Siaga and Manley. Going back that far, more recently, Portia and
No. Before that time.
Before Portia time. Sierra.
It's
Siaga.
Statement I think that has been made by Mr. Patterson, who was once a prime minister.
Uh-huh.
And it has been a long-standing statement made by Mr. Siaga, who was also a prime minister, that giving the diaspora a vote is a waste of time. I don't know why anybody would think that way. But there must be why that is so.
And that's the mindset, that's the mindset of those so-called Rhodes scholars, You know, those among us that go to, you know, the universities in Oxford and Cambridge and study under the European system. And our brother Ras Hoshing has also been very critical of the Jamaican constitution, because, you know, he tells us, you know, through that constitution, the Jamaicans don't even own Jamaica. You know, it's the corporations and the crown that owns Jamaica. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done. Indeed.
Yeah, essentially the Jamaican constitution has been loaned to us.
Jamaica has been loaned to us.
From Britain. It is an order in council. It's an extension of British rule over Jamaica. That's why do you think we are in such problems after all of these years?
That's right. Because Britain doesn't want to see Jamaica rise. Britain doesn't want to see Africa rise. Britain needs to ensure, you know, that in order for them to remain so-called superior, we have to be inferior economically, politically, religiously, culturally, in any way that they can. They will keep us, you know, inferior. Just want to rise up Maccabee, who I'm told is actually in tune to the big G. Rise yourself up, Maccabee. Sending out much love and respect to you every time, you know. So, yes, my brother... Ricky Crawford.
Well, I don't know how much time we have, but I must make this point.
Yes, and what I'll do is, after you've made the point, what I'll do is, if you don't mind, I'll ask you to ring off, but keep listening. We'll open the lines and we'll allow our callers to interact. Is that okay?
It's very important that we understand this is now 2018, right? What is happening in the world right now? Essentially, headlined by China in Africa and other countries and other investors and big powerful countries. They are making a move to acquire the wealth, the natural resources and the land of the African continent and other smaller territories. That is very significant, because if they do that, then where will you live?
Right.
And under who?
But it's a thing.
So we don't have no time. We really don't have any time.
We don't. No. We don't. Because we're being enslaved. Our land is being, you know, taken from under our feet, you know, while we, you know, are as a mindless set of people are focusing on the wrong issues. I hear you on that. And the other thing is, my brother, I mean, Jamaica, for example, all those wonderful farmers in Jamaica who know how to grow the ganja. There are African countries who have legalized the growing of ganja. What is the potential, you know, to organize for those farmers to then go to Africa, yeah, to grow the ganja there and to build the industry abroad?
What's the potential for that?
Yes.
Well, that's probably something that should be explored.
Yes.
We have gone to Africa before and it hasn't worked out very significantly. There have been problems in Shashamane where land was given to build a Jamaican society over there. I think some Jamaicans are doing quite well in Ghana, and other Jamaicans are spread out over different parts of Africa. My own sister and her husband were living once in you know, down in near in southern Africa, and they witnessed that issue when with the help of Fidel Castro and Michael Manley were able to stop the apartheid army from invading and taking over, and that led to the formation, the breakdown of the white regime in South Africa and birth of South Africa. So you know, that's also part of what I know and understand.
We have a very important role to play on the continent. I'm glad, that as a Jamaican, you are watching what's happening on the continent, are aware of what's happening on the continent, and that, you have that, you can speak of the links that have, and the efforts that have been made over the decades to try and build those bridges between Jamaica and the continent. We need to learn from where we've gone wrong in the past, and, we need to, not because we've tried it and it's gone wrong before, not think about how we can try it again and do it again. But let's open up the lines now, my brother Richard Crawford. I'm so grateful for you taking the time to share your knowledge and give us some of your insights as well as to where you see we are today as the diaspora here in the UK, and also how we could be supporting our brothers and sisters in Jamaica and on the continent. And as you said, as the diaspora, we need to organize, we need to lobby, we need to organize economically, we need to be looking to buy land, we need to be looking to be the planters, we need to be looking to see what we can do to support those abroad. So my brother Richard Crawford, I'm going to open up the lines now, and I want to thank you.
Have a nice day.
No, I'd like you to continue listening, because you're going to get some questions.
Right.
Yeah, I'm sure people are going to be putting some questions to you. So please, don't go away. Continue listening to us offline, and please do call back in about half hour or so if you're able to do so, and respond to the questions that have been put. Yeah, is that okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you so much. Okay. So, Galaxy family, you've been listening to our brother Richard Crawford, who's called in from Jamaica. He's been speaking to us here on www.galaxyafiwi.com, the only de-brainwashing station. The lines are now open. I've seen a number of callers who've been trying to get through. Brother Rasho Singh has beat everyone to the challenge of getting in while the line's open, but I will allow him to come in because he's always got such a wonderful contribution to make. But bear in mind, Rasso Shing, please keep it brief because others are going to be trying to come through now as well. Go ahead. Brother Rasso Shing, your time now.
Blessing, my sister.
Welcome back, my brother.
As what? Let us concentrate, because we Africans in the diaspora, we Jamaicans within the diaspora, we have so many of our people in the diaspora. And as what we said before, the diaspora is so important to continental development. The diaspora is so important to the Caribbean development. And with your remittance, it is time for you to take action, because when we speak of the Cannabis License Authority, that came in as part of the IMF deal. And what they're doing is, they're trying to disguise it as if it came from us to regulate ourselves. Now, as you know, my sister, you and the rest of the world know that the word cannabis has been licensed and copyrighted by the British and the North Americans. So we do not want the Cannabis License Authority, just as how the Constitution continue to enslave us. We do not want modern slavery in the form, and what they're doing, they're using our so-called Willie Lynch niggers, who are so Eurocentric, the people on the Cannabis License Authority, lawyers, businessmen, they have no idea of the spiritual reality of growing this wonderful plant naturally. So this petition, my sister, if Jamaican people don't realize the 5 million that are abroad, that you now have to be accounted, you must now put pressure on the Jamaican High Commission that just as your money worth something, so is your vote. So the pressure of the petition concerning ganja, because we don't want no other name or no other brand, that is our intellectual property. And as you know, my sister, the growing of this wonderful medicinal variation of the hemp, you cannot grow this same variation in Africa. It doesn't matter where you go in Africa. You will never get it. Africa must concentrate on industrial hemp, not medicinal hemp. Jamaica has shown to the world, because it was Jamaica particular strain of the hemp that totally mesmerized the world when they smoked it, including the hippies.
We hear you on that, my brother. It may well be that it has to be a strain because Colorado's doing very well on the strain right now. Let me bring back Richard Crawford, my brother, but keep it locked, yes? I've just lost our brother Richard, who was trying to come back. But keep it locked, brother Rasoshing. Let's leave the lines open. Brother Rasoshing, let's leave.
Richard Crawford, go through.
Okay, thank you, my brother.
Here in Jamaica.
Thank you, my brother. So let's just bring in our brother Richard Crawford. Greetings, my brother.
Yeah, greetings.
Yes, you were able to hear Rasoshing there?
No, I was listening, but I didn't hear him.
Okay. So are you listening to us via www.galaxyafiwi or via the TuneIn app?
I don't know.
There's a bit of a delay. You can. Are you listening to? Yeah, you're listening to the radio show, aren't you? Because you heard earlier when I was talking about Carter G. Woodson. Yes.
No, I didn't hear him.
Okay. So what you need to do, my brother?
I was connected, but I didn't. I thought I'd hear the call, but anyway.
No, you don't hear the calls. You have to listen offline via www.galaxyafiwi.com. That's our website. If you go to that website and click listen live, you'll be able to hear us live and direct. Okay, my brother?
Okay.
All right, one love. So we hope to hear back from our brother Richard Crawford after he's heard some of the questions. Between now and then, let's bring in our Sister Win. Grand Rising, Sister Win.
Grand Rising, my sister. Just to say, what another excellent show. And the caller from Jamaica, invaluable. I just need to pick up. There's so much that you yourself brought in at the top of the show, plus the brother from Jamaica's input that one can go into, but taking into consideration other people wanting to come on board. Just to say that in respect of the ganja situation,
yes,
my view is this, that our Prime Minister, Andrew Holness, is taking direction from the leader of the Jewish nation. It is not just the British. He knows exactly what he is doing. Why? They're determined to refer to ganja as cannabis, and why it is that he has given license to other people. It comes back to what the brother from Jamaica was saying, and about us not working together, and how what we started with as our benefit become the benefit of others. I say again, the Jamaican Prime Minister is not working for the benefit of Jamaicans, but the benefit of other nations. That's all I have to say now. There's much more I want to say, but I'm taking into consideration other people are wanting to make their contribution. Blessed love. Bye-bye.
Blessed love. Thank you so much for your interjection there, Sister Win. And, I'd have to agree absolutely with the points that you've made there. That the Jamaican government, headed up by Andrew Holness, seems to be working more to benefit others than for the benefit of his own nation. How can you have, a particular herb that another country from its strain is making over $1 billion per annum, from cultivating that particular strain and turning it into medicinal and recreational uses, and you who have the original herb, is not putting it to good use for all of your farmers and for all of your people in your country. Why allow so many of your countrymen, women and boys and girls to be unemployed when you have the potential for an industry that could transform the country overnight? Callers, the lines are now open. My apologies. Looks as though I've missed a couple of callers there. Caller 029, if you want to call back, please do. Caller 280, if you want to call in, please call back and put your point of view. And, you know, this is a problem that we've got. Our education has indoctrinated us to such an extent that even when we come up with something innovative and creative and absolutely life-changing and impactful that could be for the benefit of the country, what do we do with it? We take it to Wazungu. You know, we have the case in the Evelyn Standard. Many of you may have read that a day ago. We have two beautiful young twins from South London who are now valued at over £100 million. £100 million. They created the cryptocurrency in their mum's kitchen. Yes, these two identical twins, you know, in their mum's kitchen. Here in South London, became multimillionaires after designing one of the world's leading cryptocurrencies. Yeah? These young men, Sam and Steve Williams, 39 years old. Yeah, their parents immigrated from Nigeria in the 70s and they lived in Brockley. And what did the young ones do together? You see the beauty of partnership? You see the beauty of working together? This is why family is so important, because when you're working within the family, you've immediately got that trust. You've immediately got someone who, you know, you can rely on, someone you know's got your back, you know, so that's already there. And you have these twins who together, you know, come up with a popular cryptocurrency in their family home in Brockley that has turned them now into multi-millionaires. But where have they gone with this technology? To the Europeans. Let me bring in our brother 029. Greetings, my brother. Who do we have on the line?
Yeah, greetings. Good morning. Lovely show. Triple X on the line.
Oh, Grand Rising.
Yeah, Grand Rising to you. A wonderful show. Your guest has been really informative and intelligent and explaining things really wonderfully. It's a pity we had to phone in because I was really listening to him explaining everything and giving his information, his experience and expertise on what's happening. And I totally agree with him. One of the main things they've got us with is divide and rule, you know. Even going back to our young people in this country, you can see where they're actually killing themselves, like, you know, with their little council estates, you know, and territories of drug wars. I know that's what it is.
True, my brother, because even the twins who I've just referred to, yeah, the multimillionaires now who designed that cryptocurrency, yeah, that's one of the leading bitcoins in the market now. Yeah, one of them, you know, the trap to criminalize our young people impacted on one of them, and he too, you know, had to do all that he could to escape from going down the road of crime. So, you know, the glorification of crime and drugs, etc., has poisoned the minds of so many of our young people to think that this young twin, you know, with that multi-million-dollar idea, multi-million-pound idea, almost ended up spending a life in prison. So it's a reality.
Yes, my queen. But not only that, it's done on purpose. The government and the police force create this. I mean, we don't make no drugs in our community. So it's brought into our community from South America, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Turkey, for us to poison ourselves and our young people. And
that's right.
And it's a trend that's been going on from the 80s when we was united. They brought this illegal, illicit A-class drug into our community and started destroying us. And they've done it. They've done it before with the Indians with a drink back in the day, you know. So it's proven things that they've proven to divide and rule us, like I guess I've been talking about. They don't want to see us on top. We was on top before. We was ruling this world. And then they've taken over, and it's their time now, unfortunately. And these people haven't got no love in their heart for nobody else, only for themselves at times when they can get together and want to destroy other races. But they don't have no love, they have no soul. You know, these people, I don't know what's wrong with them and how they're so cold-blooded. Like you said, they're flesh eaters. So until we can unite and get together and stop selling out, and the leaders in Africa prostituting themselves and selling out to these white people and these so-called vanity, you know, for Mercedes and these stupid things that we don't need, we'll never get nowhere. And it's not going to happen until we start doing our stuff for ourselves. We go back to farming, we go back to Africa, start farming the land. Like you said, food and land is important. That's why Africa, South Africa in particular, must get back their land and control their land. Control it, like Marcus Garvey said. If we can't feed ourselves, the nation can't feed themselves, we're going to be poisoned by our oppressors. And that's what we need to do, my sister. That's what I have to say.
Thank you so much for your interjection there, my brother Triple X. Absolutely agree with what you've said there. Food and land, you know, is critical for our development as a people, because if we don't have control over our food and we don't have our control over the production of our food, we leave ourselves open to be poisoned by others who don't look like us, don't like us, and wouldn't think twice about poisoning us. True, my brother. One love.
One love.
So it's our brother Triple X there. We had a couple of callers trying to call in while our brother was on the line. If that was you and you want to call in, please do. Should you want to call in and you don't have the number that you need in order to interact with us here on the Big G is +44 207 193 0174. And if you're calling locally within the UK, just drop the +44 and the number is 0207 193 0174. The lines are now free. So, you know, brothers and sisters, there's so much that we as a people need to be doing. And, you know, we need to wake up. Just like our brother Abu is very awakened. My brother, come in, please.
Rise up, Sister Shanice. I'm glad you do a continuation by the Carter G. Woodson. You understand? Because I hear us sing and others talking about the diaspora. But you know, we have to earmark these diaspora that's in authority. You know, if you read the report on Baroness Amos, or she dis even the reparation, ask the question: how much of these so-called people in those places is standing up and defending their people here? The Carter G. Woodson is right in our face. They have no heart for their people here. Go and see where these people retire when them left public office. They go far from them people here. You understand? You know, we can't fool ourselves and think that because they're black, they're in our defense. They are the biggest gatekeeper in ESOya. All of these black people were sitting at the House of Lord and the House of Commons and all of these council chamber and all of these things. They want to wake up.
Indeed. Let's bring in our sis Anita. Greetings, sis. Welcome to the Big G.
Greetings, my sister, and greetings to Galaxy family. My sister, I'm listening to your program. I missed some of it, but it's very intriguing. However, I would just like to ask one question to the brother from Jamaica, not Ross Roshing.
Brother Richard Crawford.
Yeah. I would like to ask a question. He said, how much did the Jamaican government pay to the British government for our so-called independence? Number one. And number two, what I would like to say apart from that is the Jamaican government have never really respected their farmers. They've always treated their farmers like dirt. From I was a child, because I come from a farming family, and the way the government of Jamaica have always treated their farmers was like rubbish. In the end, they have to go to America to cut canes to make up. And this was people with land and farming, and yet you have to go to America to cut cane. In the end, my father came to Britain because he couldn't take it anymore. and because he was in politics, and he had to run out of Jamaica because they wanted to kill him. I'm telling you, the people of so-called people who run in Jamaica, it's time our Jamaican people wake up and get their head out the sand and take back control of their country, because every one of them that go up there in power, all they do is sell their people out. They do not care for their people. They're only there to line their pockets. And as for the ganja part, what upset me is the fact that America, that Canada, Britain, and other European countries now want to go into Jamaica with their derive, because their cannabis is not ganja. And that's going to contaminate all the natural product. Jamaica people should make sure that cannabis is not grown in Jamaica. If anything's grown there, it should be the original, the proper ganja. Because the cannabis is going to end up wiping out the natural ganja itself. Because it's a patent of the original. It's not the original. And we need to grow the original to get the best product from it. And this is what upset me, the fact that how can you give license to people who come from outside to come in and grow a derived product when you have the original, rather than you helping your farmers there and encouraging them and give them license to grow the proper product where you can get the best medicine. You're not prepared to do that? But you're prepared to let a derived product come in and be grown, and yet you have the original, and you keeping down the people who grow the original?
And I suppose, my sis, this is where the argument to some extent is in a vacuum, because on the one hand, you know, we're saying that the government doesn't care about the people. It cares more about, you know, the foreigners such as, you know, the Americans and the British and the Canadians, and feathering their nests and supporting their industries, than it does care about, you know, developing industry within its own country and supporting the people who can develop and grow those industries. So it's like, you know, it's like knowing that they don't care. It's like, what can we do about it? I mean, it's we care. We want, you know, we don't want the ganja train contaminated. We want to see the people of Jamaica be the beneficiaries of this multi-billion-dollar industry. We want to protect, you know, the ganja, and we don't want the GMO version in the country. You know, that's what we're saying we want, but we know that the government is just ignoring those calls, you know. And as Brother Dr. Abu was saying, we've got those Africans among us, you know, sitting in the Houses of Commons and the House of Lords, who have positions of authority and power, who could, you know, add to the weight and the call and the lobbying of those governments to bring about the change and the turning around that we want to see. Because as our brother Richard said, unless the government feel pressured, they are not going to do anything. They are not going to change. So we're going to have to put up that pressure. My sis, we've got a meeting that's happening on the 15th of December. You know, Galaxy is responding to the call where, you know, it's during the Kwanzaa month. We're bringing together our family on the 15th of December, because we do have to get organized, and we do need to become, you know, a lobby group and a pressure, you know, so that we can apply pressure around the issues that, you know, are impacting on us as a people, indeed. And, you know, we certainly hope that you will be able to make it to that meeting so you can add your voice to, you know, the lobby group, because the questions that you're asking me, we need to put those questions to the Jamaican ambassadors, and we need to put those questions to the Jamaican government, and we need to be asking those questions, you know, in places that's going to embarrass them into doing what needs to be done if need be.
And another thing, my sister, we do need to put pressure on them. And why is it that we do not have the right to vote for Jamaica when the election is on? I was born there. My neighbour buried there. So why can I not vote for my country? How come in Britain, when there's election time, you have people who live abroad vote for Britain? Why can I not vote for my country?
And that's a question we need to put to the ambassadors here, and loud and clear, so that they can take that up again as an issue. But, you know, as we know, my sis, until we, you know, become a formidable force to be reckoned with, until we realize the power of one, each and every one of us, you know, to be part of a movement that is demanding change. You know, until we get to that place, it's going to be hard for us to be taken seriously. But, you know, we have to start from somewhere. Event.
Okay, my sister.
Thank you.
Off here.
Thank you.
Somebody else coming.
Thank you very much, my sis. One love, one love. Let's bring back Rasso Shing. That was our sister Anita there. Brother Rasso Shing, you're jumping back in. Come in, my brother.
Yes, my beloved sister, because as we are saying, the Jamaican diaspora must realize the importance of this natural herb that we have here. The Jamaican diaspora must go to the Jamaican High Commission in London. We must all now hold our government, our so-called leaders that are supposed to represent our country. We must now put pressure on them and let them know this is not business as usual. That is the only way, my sister. Africa awaits the diaspora. Jamaica and the Caribbean needs the diaspora. And as what we said, Africa, between Jamaica and the continent, under the South African, because the South African government are responsible to synthesize the 6th region, which is the African diaspora region.
Right.
Africa, South Africa has advanced their growing of industrial hemp.
Right, my brother, and they've made it legal to do so as well. Let me bring in caller 280, who's been trying to get through for some time, my brother, but feel free to call back, okay?
I will continue because this petition, Sister Shanice, we are only at 1,260.
I know.
I checked it this morning.
Yes.
And that, to me, my beloved, is very appalling.
It is. It's very appalling indeed. So let's give them the I'm going to give them the website address right now, my brother, and I'm going to open up the line so others can come in as well. But Rasso Shin, we thank you. Call back before the end of the show if you wish to do so. So that was our brother Rasso Shin. You've heard him. He said there's only 1,260 people so far who have signed the petition. Come on, we can do better than that. If you are listening right now and you haven't signed the petition that we started in support of our brothers and sisters in Jamaica who want to want us to help them to put pressure on the government to enable them to access the ganja industry, please sign that petition. To sign the petition, you go online to change.org. That's www.change.org. And once you go through to that website, you just search for Jamaica Ganja. You can put Wholeness in there. That's the name of the Prime Minister over there, Andrew Holness. So you just put Ganja, Andrew Holness, and our petition will come up. It's the one with the Jamaican flag. Please do sign that petition, and then after you've signed the petition, please do share it. Share the petition. We need to get thousands of people to sign that petition, and we're not asking too much of our people, and this is why we get ignored, because even when something like the Jamaican ganja industry, even when it's an industry that can help, save lives, stop our people, our children murdering each other, even something as important as that, you would think we'd come out in our numbers and support by just clicking on the Go Change Me website. Some of us still haven't even bothered to do that. Now, I don't know what your reason may be for not bothering to sign that petition, but if that's you and you haven't signed the petition, please do go onto the website and sign the petition. If you haven't got access to the website at home, then go to the internet cafes or go to the library where you can go on the internet free of charge. Yeah, you go on there free of charge, and then you can just type in www.change.org / and then just search for Jamaica Ganja petition, Andrew Wholeness, and it will come up. Please do that today. Let's be supporting each other in our efforts. This isn't going to benefit me in any way. I'm here to just try and, as a voice to raise awareness around this particular issue. I need you now to actually be the one who goes online and supports that petition, and then after supporting it by signing it, to share it. Okay, it doesn't cost you anything to sign the petition. You know, if they come in and they ask you to make a donation, it's up to you whether you make a donation or not. That donation doesn't come to me. It doesn't come to the Jamaican farmers. It doesn't come to Ras Ho Shing. It goes to the change.org organization to finance the work that they do to enable people to use their site for free. But it's voluntary whether or not you make a £2 or a £5 donation. You don't have to do it. So, you know, please do take the time to support the works. You know, very, very important. We've got another caller on the line. Caller 280. Thank you for calling back. Who do we have on the line?
Yeah, Hotep, my sister. Yes, not so silent listener.
Hotep, my not so silent listener. Do you want to give yourself a name?
Yeah, that's it. You know.
That's welcome, my brother.
You know, with the elder, what he was saying, it's not new really what the elder was saying. To be honest with you, you know what I mean? It's something we all hear before, and you know, I seem to have a lot of faith in this government that run in that Caribbean country there that you come from. You know, you seem to have a lot of faith to say that you're gonna petition or you ain't gonna pressure nothing. Yeah, and I ain't coming across just because I'm saying that to be negative. It's real. Yeah, these people are born, to serve Europeans. Yeah, these people are part of a secret club. They're part of like Black Boule. You understand? These people would rather die than ever help black people do anything. As a bunch of mix, I saw in Jamaica it's the same thing. It's a bunch of mixed people up there that rule all over you in that country. Yeah, and one thing you need to know. Yeah, when our ancestors fought to free us from slavery, yeah, it weren't no petition or nothing. It weren't no let's talk, let's this, let's that. The only language these idiots understand is a cold, sharp blade. And you don't like to hear it, fine. You don't like to hear it, ignore it then. I'll keep calling until you hear it. Do you understand? Name their ancestor. Paul Bog was from Jamaica, yeah? Mm-hmm. Okay, could you tell me what he done?
Yes, my brother. He tried marching, didn't he, down to the courthouse where all of the government officials were to just get some land for the people so that they could farm the land and feed themselves. And in the end he had to come back with a machete. Him and his people, yes, that's true.
Shall I bring another
and take off all of them heads, yes.
Right. What was the one in America name again?
Well, there's more in Jamaica. Sam Sharp ended up having to resort.
All of them. Name all of those ones that had to rise up on the islands there.
Yes, yeah. Bossa, Bookman Dotty, Nanny of the Maroons.
Right. Look, what did they do? Let's.
They had to fight. Yes, they had.
People, I want to cuss. What did they have to do to these people? These people are not. They're not going to let up. They're going to be. Listen, it's just a thing that they got you to string along, yeah, to keep you on a long something where you can just hold you down and yeah. They ain't gonna do nothing. Yeah, what you need to do, and which is nobody's gonna do it. And you have to take up. There needs to be some goddamn interaction in that island there.
So we know from the history, my young brother, we know from the history how we had to bring about the changes that we are enjoying today. But these are different times. So during these times, what are you suggesting that we do during these times?
No, it's the same exact time. Let me tell you why. There ain't no right time. When our ancestors had to rise up off those plantations, and then the first one said to me, something, boy, I don't want to do this, because it's going to make a whole heap of problems for us, my little son, my little kid, my wife. But you know what? But I got to do it. And they had to raise up, they met a wall and said to themselves, you know what? In their time, don't you think they felt the same way as we feel now? Didn't they think to themselves, well, you know what? It's a different time, we can't, but they must have felt the same, and there must have been a bug of them that thought the same way. But no, they pick up the thing and say, no, boy, listen, this got done today, and it's when you're fed up enough and say, boy, this is gonna done today, then it's gonna done today. I don't understand why nobody. When I see any little clip of I'm not from Jamaica, but when I see clips from over Jamaica, and it's just a bit talk of nothing a go on for we that I'm here. I'm thinking, what do you mean nothing a go on for you? As soon as somebody from foreign reach there, like a DJ was saying when he went to Jamaica. What happened to him when he went to visit his homeland? As soon as he reached there, they're looking at him like foreigner and looking at him like a fool and want to cut him and dig him. And he stood there, right, at that same place where he was, and one white boy walked through the place and they didn't say nothing to him. But
same problem we got in South Africa, xenophobia.
They got war talk. They got war talk and machete talk for the brother that killed his own family. But they got no war talk or no machete talk for them damn white people there.
Or the Chinese or the Indian or anybody else.
I'm tired of this. And I'll be saying this again next year, and the year again, next year again. I'll be saying the same thing. And I just say, oh, he's a violent man and he's no good. The time is now. If you don't want to move and you want to talk forever, sit there and talk forever and don't complain, because that's what it's gonna. Now listen, let me come off the air, because I know people just fed up of hearing my voice already.
No, we are never fed up of hearing your voice.
That's enough. I said, listen, we got to change this for the future. We're going around in circles, they're not listening. And it's a long thing they got you on. That's what they want you to do. They want you to be marching. They want you to be all petitioning, so that they can long you out. You know what I mean? They want you to, the only language they understand is a machete to the top of their head, and that is it. And that is it. I don't care what you think. I don't care if you think I'm violent and that. I don't business. Our ancestors let us down when they didn't stick to the armory, when their Zulus were fighting. Yeah? The Zulus didn't go fight them stupid British and Dutch with a petition and paper. They took damn spears and took it in their backside. That's what they did. And that's what they did, and that's what we need to do now. And the reason why we can't do it because we ain't got our own arms. We don't need no food on our herbs. It's arms we need. And because we ain't got no arms, we're suckers forever. And let me leave it there.
Come in, Dr. Abu. Hold it there, my brother.
I hear the young blood, it's arms we need. But our arms come from our thoughts. Our arms doesn't come from the European, you have to go back and check the 80th revolution and see where they get the arms from to defeat the French and the British and all of them. From the mind. You see, if the people have a mind, how can we derive our weapon? Our weapon will come from our mind, man. See? That's why he said organize or perish. The Jamaican government is a threat to the Jamaican people. Simple as that. It's not the gunman. It's the Jamaican government. Because they do nothing to even inform and educate the people. He even coming from the Caribbean to come here. You see the Jamaican embassy come out and stand up for what happened to their people. Look what happened to him brother called Grant. His son died. Death in custody. And we think say don't go when them dead in a police custody is custody. Custody is wherever they have us. Did the Jamaican government call the British ambassador in a Jamaica and said, hey, what I'm saying here, a full time we wake up, and we can't make our young people them go out there and causing certain chaos where they don't have any order and control over. We as adults have to take control, and I'm saying that the so-called celebrity and the so-called professional that it's here, our doctorate of sociology is full-time and get up off of them backside and start work for them people.
I agree with you entirely, Dr. Abu. Do you give us a call? You heard what our young brother was saying, but what I'd like to add to that is this. I understand our history and I understand, the importance of, arms as being part of the struggle. We've seen that, a multitude of times throughout our history. So it's not something we can ignore, okay? But what I also believe is that we can be a force to be reckoned with. And, if, this is what we was talking about earlier, how our oppressor has our mind. And once they have our mind, they don't need to worry about us. The reason why they don't need to worry about us is because they've already conditioned our mind into, into believing that we are powerless. And so we believe that. Rasso Shin gonna bring it back, but there's caller 451 on the line who I haven't heard from as yet. So let's bring in caller 451. Greetings, caller. Who do we have on the line?
I'm Lone Wolf, sis.
Lone Wolf, welcome to the discussion. How are you today?
As usual, I have to keep on moving. Give thanks for the day.
Absolutely.
I'd just like to just elaborate on one point here. we're not careful, the generation gap which we have with our children is going to get unmendable. Because you heard already one young brother there who is really frustrated. And if there's no communication with the elders, yeah, these young men may do things that may not be conducive for our community. But I could fully understand their frustration on what's going on.
Yes, my brother. They need to see us organizing as well, and they need to see us coming together as a force to be reckoned with. No one's going to listen to us, and no one's going to take us seriously while we're fragmented and unorganized. That's why we've got the meeting coming up on the 15th of December. Galaxy is responding to the call of the people in an effort for us to come together to begin to organize and become that force, that lobbying force that is going to be demanding the changes that we want to see. And we have to get this structure in place to give our young people some confidence in our ability to bring about changes, and they have to see us winning some of these battles as well. Otherwise, as you say, my brother, we're going to lose, the confidence of our young people, and they may end up taking matters into their own hands, which will be, to their destruction, maybe. So let's do what we can to organize as a people and to prepare, a road where we can see through organization and lobbying and demands that we are making some headway and some gains,
Sister, also on the other hand, we must never forget what happened on the uprising in the 80s, where young soldiers done the uprising and criminals took the benefits by going with the government. We've got to be balanced here at the end of the day. We need them young soldiers, but we need them in the right frame of mind.
Absolutely right, my brother.
We're going to speak to them and touch them in the right mental way, then us elders, we have a problem. Sis, I'm out of here.
Hear you loud and clear, my brother. Thank you for that very important reminder. He reminded us that in the 1980s, young people did the uprising, and then we had these bourgeoisies who came in and creamed off, all of the so-called crumbs that were thrown into our community, by the government of the day to try and quell the fire that was raging at the time. My brother, come in, please.
No, that's a serious thing, sis, know. And then you ask the question, with all of those riots and all, who benefit from that?
Right.
See it? Black pastors and black councillors, see it, and them benefit from it. The other rest of people, them suffer higher.
Right.
Suffer.
And we have to learn from that history. We have to learn that when there is an incident, if there is an uprising, when they come into our community, who are the ones that they're electing and selecting on to be our representatives? Are these the people who we ourselves would want to have represent us and speak for us? Where are they now? What are they doing now? The last time we heard the voices of our black MPs was around the Windrush. That's because they had permission to talk about the Windrush, because they knew that the Jamaican governments and the CARICOM governments were coming to the UK to visit the Queen, and were going to be raising it, and the Queen didn't want to have that as an embarrassment because she wanted Prince William, Prince Philip, or whoever it is to be taking over the head of CARICOM. And there's no way that those governments would have wanted that or allowed that, with this whole Windrush saga tarnishing the image of the UK. But now that's like water under the bridge. Where are their voices now? Our children are still being murdered in custody. Our children are still being criminalized on the streets through the stop and search. Our people are still unemployed. Large numbers of them are unemployed and are suffering below the poverty line. Where are those voices? I bet you soon hear the voices if there was a riot, innit?
No. You see, the only time you hear these people, my sister, is when they have a personal gripe with Wazungu.
Oh.
You understand? But they can't see it as a collective. When the collective go through certain things, they don't pay it no mind, You watch.
Them all right is all right.
Right. You watch, and them when they now get no more seen on TV, and then now get no in the chart, and you see them come out. That's the only time, and they're not coming out for the masses. They're coming out for themselves.
Yes.
Their self blood.
Hello, greetings, Sister Shanice. This is Brother Noel, and greetings to the Galaxy family as well.
Greetings, Brother Noel. Welcome. Yes, welcome to the Big G, my brother. Go ahead. There's a little echo behind you. You may be on hands-free, but if you speak directly into the phone, then we won't have that echo. So we want to thank you so much for giving us a call. It's 6 minutes away from the top of the hour. The floor is yours, my brother. Go ahead.
Okay, Sister Shanice. I mean, to me, the word is exposure. We need to start exposing the hypocrisy of the government, exposing the hypocrisy of everybody. I mean, we got so much that we can use in terms of social media, exposing all the hypocrisy and exposing it on social media and then deploying it to let everybody see for themselves. That's the only way that you're going to actually affect change. And letting people see for themselves what's going on. And if we start saying that we want change, and we go to the high commissions, the governments, and it's a reasonable demand that we're asking for. Demands that they've given to other people, other communities, other races. Why would it be a thing that they can't even do the same for the blacks? So
that's right, my brother. I'm losing your voice slightly.
Can you hear me now?
Oh yeah, loud and clear.
Okay, yeah. This is what I'm saying. I mean, it's about exposing the hypocrisy throughout.
Wonderful. Absolutely.
I'm in a building. I'm in a slightly enclosed building. That's why you're hearing that slight.
My brother Noel, I want to thank you so much for picking up the phone and interjecting there. We absolutely hear you. You're reminding us that there is another weapon that we can use, and that's a weapon of exposure, exposing the hypocrisy of the government, using social media to do that, and we hear Russell Shing as well saying that we have got to be the change that we want to see, and our earlier caller and our brother who was saying, talking back in the days didn't save us, action is what saved us. And so just sitting down in the comfort of our home and complaining is not going to bring about the change that we want to see. We have to be prepared to take action. That action might mean turning up at meetings, turning up when we're lobbying the government. These people, they only bow to pressure. And they only bow, when and the pressure at the moment comes from those in power. Pressure doesn't tend to come from those who are powerless, but those who are powerless, you see, if we come together, we will be a formidable force to be reckoned with.
That's right.
So I want to rise you up, my brother, and I want to thank you for all the works that you're doing behind the scenes as well. Some awesome works for the Big G. Thank you. And all being well, we'll be seeing you a little later as well for...
I can go on forever about having pages.
So we will invite you back, my brother, so that you can talk some more about the various pages on that particular app that you're building. And we want to thank you, and we want to rise you. May you continue to rise, for the works that you're doing, my brother.
Thank you.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you. So that's all that we have time for today, I'm afraid, because it is 1 minute away from the top of the hour, and our next presenter is in the house. So much. All of our callers from around the UK, thank you so much, each and every one of you. For all of our silent listeners, we thank you for listening and for keeping it locked to the Big G. One love.